morning, friends. Welcome to another episode. My name is Riaan Nolan, and I'm a HashiCorp ambassador. And in today's episode, I want to tell you a little bit more about HashiQube, a DevOps lab that can help you use and practice with all the HashiCorp tools: Vault, Consul, Nomad, Waypoint, Boundary, Packer, Vagrant, Terraform, all of these guys, and some popular open source integrations like GitLab, Kubernetes using Minikube, Apache Airflow, DBT, all the MySQL, the MS SQL, Postgres, and then Ansible Tower, and then Grafana and Prometheus, all of them. So, to help you get started, I'd like to share my screen with you. And the very first thing we are going to do is go to HashiCube.com. And when you get to the HashiCube website, you can read a little bit more about it and also all the integrations that you can see here on the left-hand side. Now, to get started, we need 10 gigabyte of disk space. We need minimum 4 gig of RAM, but 8 gig is recommended. We need Docker and Vagrant. That's as simple as that. Then we are going to clone HashiCube and we are going to run Vagrant up -- provision. But let's quickly install Docker Desktop. We click on this link, we go to Docker Desktop, and we download it for Mac. And we install it. Now, I've already done this, friends. And if you see here at the top, here is my Docker Desktop. Now, let's install Vagrant. And if we click on this link, we will get to the Vagrant site. And here it will tell you how to download and install Vagrant. Lastly, we are going to use Git to clone HashiCube. Now, in order to get Git, you can click over here, what is Git? And this will tell you where to get Git, download it, and install it. Lastly, we can then clone the HashiCube repository onto our local. Now, friends, lastly, we are going to run Vagrant up -- provision. Now, Vagrant is a tool from HashiCorp to bring about developer environments. And this lab uses Vagrant to create all of the networking, the disk, all of the provisioners. And provisioners are just little scripts that we run to tell this Vagrant box, this HashiCube, to install something for us. Now, as you can see, I've already run Vagrant up -- provision, and you will see this output at the bottom. Now, it will tell you that we've got Nomad installed. And if we click on Nomad and we copy this and we open up Nomad in a new tab, we can see that we've already got Nomad here with a bunch of workloads, amongst other Waypoint and 2 demos. And if we go to this URL, we can see that we have Consul up and running. And this is what Consul looks like. Now, this lab will get you started to use all of the HashiCorp tools, but you can also do amazing stuff like Vagrant up -- provision -with, and we can then say Minikube. And when we run this, Vagrant is going to run a Minikube provisioner for us. While this is busy running, let me show you where to find the provisioners. We are going to open up our Visual Studio Code. And this you can download from visualstudio.com. Now, if we open up our recent folder, if we file open folder, we can go to my workspace, which is sitting over here, and we can go to personal and we can open up HashiCube. There we go. I'm just going to close all of these. So if you look at the HashiCube repository, you will see a bunch of folders. And these folders coincide to all of the menu items that you see over here. So in the case of Minikube, if you click on Minikube over here, it will give you a Vagrant Up provision command to run. It will tell you a little bit about Minikube with some links and show you the output of this provisioner that we are running now. Next, it will tell you where to find the Minikube dashboard, since HashiCube will automatically install that for us. Now, Minikube is just a desktop version of Kubernetes, a small little Kubernetes instance. Now, this can help you learn Kubernetes. On the other side, you can also learn Nomad. So let's go back to our provisioner, and we will just wait for this to finish, and I will come right back to you when Minikube is up and running, and I'll take you for a small tour.
A few moments later.
Now, friends, welcome back. I've just run Vagrant Up ---- provision, and this has installed and brought about all of the HashiCorp tools for me. But I also wanted to show you how we can run these provisioners by themselves, meaning that we can either run Vagrant Up ---- provision, or we can go base tools, and this will install app packages like curl, wget, jqueue, Python, all of this stuff for us. And we can do Docker, and we can do Doxify, our documentation editor, and Minikube. Now, I've already run Minikube for you, and in the previous section, I've shown you how to access Nomad and Consul and Vault and all of this. Now I'd like to show you how to access Minikube. So when we go to this Minikube dashboard over here, and we open up our browser, we can simply punch this in. Now this, if you're not familiar with it, is the Kubernetes dashboard. Top left, we have some namespaces. We'd like to see all the namespaces. And think of namespaces as little sections, compartments, giving apps its own little space. Now, in all of these namespaces, we can see that we've got a number of pods running. And pods are little containers, little jobs that are running inside of your Kubernetes cluster. Now, this episode isn't about Kubernetes as such. It is more to get you to be able to use HashiCube and Vagrant effectively. Now, if we go back to the home page, I want to show you all of the integrations. But before I do that, maybe I can just quickly explain to you what is HashiCube. Now, HashiCube is a DevOps lab. This DevOps lab helps me as a consultant quickly spin up Jenkins, quickly spin up Minikube, where I can test my Kubernetes deployments, my manifest, my Helm charts. It lets me quickly spin up Ansible AWX Tower, where I can use and test my Ansible roles and playbooks. Gives me a vault that I can then try and access my secrets or configure database credentials in MySQL, Postgres. And it also helps me learn new things. So I'm a DevOps engineer and I knew very little about data, but I saw some of my colleagues were using Airflow, Apache Airflow, and I wanted to see what that was about. And I got Apache Airflow running on Minikube with a web interface that you can access. But then I also saw, they are writing all of these DAGs. And I wasn't quite sure what a DAG was. Well, a DAG is just a little job defined in Python. So HashiCube helped me and gave me a lab where I could write and test my DAGs. And then I saw that they were also using dbt, which is a data build tool. And HashiCube could help me run dbt and execute it via Apache Airflow using a DAG and the SSH operator. I'll go into more details and depth about this later on. But like I said, maybe I can just quickly explain to you what is HashiCube. So HashiCube is a DevOps lab that can help you test, POC, and integrate many different technologies. But at its core, if you look at this little block here at the bottom, I wonder if I can zoom in. I can actually zoom in. So what HashiCube is if you think of this little block over here as your computer. So this is either your laptop, your PC, or your cloud VM, your cloud instance. Now, at the bottom, you've either running Mac, or you're running Windows, or you're running Linux, or it's an AWS VM, or a GCP VM, or an Azure VM. On top of this, we are going to install Vagrant. And then we are going to install Docker or VirtualBox. HashiCube uses Docker as its default provider, but if you cannot use Docker because of some licensing issue, you can use VirtualBox to run HashiCube. Now, when you go Vagrant up -- provision, this will download an Ubuntu Jammy box in a Docker container or as a VirtualBox from Vagrant Cloud and spin this up for you, boot this thing. Then, on top of this Ubuntu Jammy, we are going to run base tools, which is a provisioner, which will install stuff like wget, curl, Python for us, all of these things. We are going to install Docker inside of HashiCube as well, so that we can run workloads using Nomad or Minikube. Then we are going to install Vault, Consul, Terraform, Waypoint, Boundary, Nomad, and so on. Now, all of these correspond to a menu item. Therefore, if you look at Vault, you can scroll down and access Vault over here. And this will show you what you can do. Here's a little video describing it, and it will give you the command to type in. And when you are done, it will show you where you can log in and how you can log in. Back to what HashiCube is once we've got these provisioners installed, one of the provisioners are Nomad, and another one is Minikube. Now, if we run Vagrant up -- provision - with Nomad, we can run containerized workloads. Now, this layer at the top here is Nomad, and this layer at the top is Minikube, Kubernetes. So on here, on Nomad, you can see that we can run Waypoint on Nomad, or we can run Waypoint on Kubernetes. We can run Trafic on Nomad, or we can run Trafic on Minikube, or we can run these things side by side and compare the functionality side by side. Then on Nomad, we run Fabio load balancer, and we run a little Node.js app. Now on Kubernetes, we run Trafic, excuse me, we run Ansible AWX Tower, we run our little Node.js app, we also run Apache Airflow, Prometheus, and Grafana, and we run GitLab. Now, that is your little laptop or cloud instance. And this is basically what we are doing. We are cloning HashiCube from GitHub. We are using Vagrant to install and to boot HashiCube for us with all of these corresponding provisioners. Now, friends, at some stage of the game, you're going to want to run HashiCube in a cloud so that you can integrate this with IAM or KMS or some cloud functionality endpoint. Now, for that, I've written a Terraform registry module, and this will install or spin or boot up HashiCube on AWS, GCP, or Azure, or all three of them together. And when we run them all together, we are going to cluster Vault, we cluster Consul, and we cluster Nomad so that we can extend our learnings on these HashiCorp tools. Now, I use the open source community editions of all of the HashiCorp tools. But that said, if you are an enterprise client and you have a license from HashiCorp, you can copy the boundary inside of HashiCube, provide your license, and spin this up. So you are free to test enterprise versions of HashiCorp products. Now let's quickly just touch on the integrations. So over here On the left-hand menu, you will see all of the integrations, and they each have their own little menu item. Now, over here, you have a visual representation of all of these integrations, meaning that I can run GitLab on HashiCube. And I can then integrate GitLab with Terraform or GitLab with Vault to fetch secrets. I can run Kubernetes on HashiCube using Minikube. And I can then deploy workloads on top of this. I can run my MySQLs to test how Vault can help me create users within MySQL. I can run AWX Tower to help me integrate my Ansible roles and playbooks with Vault to fetch secrets, and use Terraform to execute an Ansible run. I can also run Grafana and Prometheus so that I can monitor Vault and Consul metrics. Now, on the other side, I can also run Elasticsearch and Kibana if you need to use that. But as you can see, all of these integrations have got their own little section that you can copy and paste and get this running. Now, let's quickly go back to HashiCube. When you've brought up HashiCube, you can do Vagrant global-status. And you will see that HashiCube is running in a Docker container or using the provider Docker. Now, you are able to see this when you go to your Docker desktop. Here is HashiCube running. And we can look at the stats, how much memory and how much CPU it's using. But we can also SSH into HashiCube. So we can do Vagrant SSH. And we are using Vagrant to SSH into HashiCube. But being a Docker container, we can also do Docker PS. And we can then do Docker exec-it. We specify the container ID, and we tell it we want to drop us into bin bash. And here we are in HashiCube. I'm going to take the easy way out, and we are going to go Vagrant SSH. Now, once you are in HashiCube, you are effectively in Linux Ubuntu VM. You can do df space -h. You can echo who am I. You can go ps-aux to see your processes running. You can do top. All of these little things you can do. So when we just go quit over here, I want to also show you that you can do Vault status. Because Vault is up, you can see the status of Vault. We can do Nomad job status, and you can see these jobs running in Nomad. But you can also do kubectl get pods and services in all namespaces. And you can see your Kubernetes workloads running. Now, what I'm going to do next is I am just quickly going to show you how we are going to bring up Ansible AWX Tower, just to show you a little bit more of these integrations. Now, keep in mind, we started HashiCube with just 4 GB of RAM. This is good to run Vault, Nomad, Consul, all of this. Vagrant up minus provision will work just fine with 4 GB of RAM. However, if you're going to start to run stuff like GitLab and Vault and Ansible Tower, 4 GB will not be sufficient. And therefore, I up my RAM to 8 GB. And if I need a little bit more, then I up it to 12 GB. Now, for reference, I use a MacBook Air with 16 GB of RAM. And by default, I give HashiCube 12 GB. So this is enough to run. I can run anything I want. I can run GitLab, AWX Tower. I can run Jenkins. Whatever engagement I'm on, I can do this. So we've already run Vagrant up minus provision. We've got Docker going. We have got Minikube going. So if we look at the AWX Tower provisioner over here, we will see that we need to run base tools. We've done that. we need to run Docker. We've done that. Doxify is the documentation for us, and you can find that on localhost :333. We just want to change that. And here is HashiCube.com documentation locally, meaning that once you've spun this up, you don't really need an internet connection anymore. You've got all the documentation here with you. But back to Ansible Tower, we've got Minikube up, and we need to bring up Ansible Tower. So we can just go vagrant up -- provision -with Ansible Tower. And let's do that. Provision -with Ansible Tower. So when I do that, it will clone AWX for us. It will install Ansible with all its pip dependencies. Don't worry about these little errors that's being outputted here. It will carry on and work. Some of this are standard out. And as you know, with open source tools, things change versions, some things break. However, this thing is non-blocking and it will just carry on provisioning it up. So it is pulling our Ansible Community Edition image for us over here. And it will then use Customize to bring Ansible Tower, AWX Tower up on Minikube. Now, I'm going to quickly pause this video here and we'll be back in just a minute. This takes about 5 to 10 minutes. So grab a coffee and I'll see you guys right back.
A few moments later.
Now, friends, welcome back. We left off where I started vagrant up -- provision -with Ansible -tower. Now, this job is just about to finish, but I think maybe I can just quickly show you what I've done. So we left off where I issued this command, vagrant up -- provision -Ansible Tower. Now, HashiCube is built kind of like Legos. So you get the base box, which is done by Vagrant, that sets up the networking for you and all the scaffolding surrounding it. Then we make use of provisioners, and we then use base tools to install some of the tools that all of the other provisioners might need. We then install provision with Docker, and this sets up a Docker daemon inside of HashiCube for us with a Docker registry. Now, once we've got Docker, we can then put some orchestrators on top of it, such as Nomad or Minikube. And that's exactly what we've done. We've now put these orchestration engines on top of Docker. Now, what we can then do once we've got Nomad or Minikube running is we can now deploy workloads to it. And for Nomad, that's a Nomad job template. And this can deploy stuff like Fabio for us, or a Waypoint workload, or Trafic. And in the case of Kubernetes, using Minikube, we can use Helm or Customize. Now, that is exactly what has happened over here. We have cloned the AWX repository. We then create an AWX.YAML with kubectl using Customize. And then we are going to use Customize to bring these workloads online. And this is exactly what we are doing here. We are doing kubectl apply-f, the file. And here you can see that our namespace is being created and our workloads are now coming online. Now we wait for the AWX controller to become available. And this will sleep a little bit in a loop, just so that we can wait for this thing to come online. And we are then going to deploy this again with kubectl apply. Now we are waiting for AWX demo to become available, and we sleep a few times in a loop. And as you can see, it is now available, and it has printed out our Kubernetes secret, which is our Ansible AWX password. But we're not yet done. We need to install a Netstat package within this because we are waiting for a port to become available. Now here, you can see we are using a while loop to just sleep and check for this port to become available. Now, this port has just become available, 8052. And at that stage, we are ready to do our kubectl port forward. And we are then mapping 8043 on the local host into this Kubernetes workload. Now we write a little bit of a config file that we are going to use further down. And now we are using the AWX CLI utility to talk to the AWX Tower API and do stuff for us. So we are creating a project, Ansible role, example role. This then clones down the repository from my personal GitHub, and it then creates a job template. It then adds the credential Ansible to Ansible AWX Tower, and then it binds this credential to the job template. And then it's going to allow SSH to log in with a password. So we are going to make this modification, and then it's going to add this HashiCube instance itself, the container, to the AWX inventory. So AWX will actually configure the container underneath. Now, we are then going to call this job template, and the output that we'll see looks something like this. It's going to set a fact and discover that's Ubuntu. Doesn't quite sure know where it is at the moment. That's because it's running in a Docker container and not in Google or GCP, well, I mean AWS or Azure. But it will then write some Ansible host vars to a file for us. I call this a fingerprint, and it will add an Ansible user. And then at the bottom, it will give us an address where we can access Ansible AWX Tower using the username admin and this password at this URL. So let's log in over here. So we open up a new tab and our AWX interface is loading. The username is admin and that is the password. We don't save and we log in. Now, as you can see, we have a couple of things here. This is the Ansible AWX web interface. Now, first of all, we have a project, and this project is my Ansible role example role. Now, it tells me that this project is cloned from the source control URL, github.com/star3am, that's me, /Ansible-role-example-role. Now, the reason it did that for us is I actually want to show you is if we go into Ansible Tower and we open up the Ansible Tower provisioner, we can see exactly what this provisioner was doing. So first of all, I've left you a couple of links at the top. It's exporting a path for us where the pip extensions are going to be installed. It then clones our AWX repository. It is then installing a bunch of pip packages for us, amongst other this AWX kit, and that's the Ansible Tower CLI utility. It's then doing our customized file that is creating for us, and it's then doing the kubectl apply-f AWX. Okay, this is all being outputted in the provisioner. We set a little bit of a manifest over here, and we apply this again. And then here is our AWX password that gets outputted over here. And then we are waiting for the Tower web interface to become available. And we have a while loop here. And this is what you saw, this while loop continuously checking. And then we're going to set this config file for us, the Tower CLI. And using this Tower CLI config file, we can then do things such as AWX organizations, create the name of the organization, and we say, give it a name. And on top of each of these little code blocks, I've linked you to the Ansible Tower documentation page. So let's say it's creating a project from Ansible role example role. We are copying this link, and I just want to show you this is what I used when I created this provisioner. If you open up this page, you can see how to create a project with the flags that we can specify and their types. Now, what I've done here is I've specified AWX projects create organization default, and I've set the SCM update, the source control should be update, the version of this repository. And then I've given the source control version, the URL, which is this guy over here, which is my Ansible role. And then I add this role. And then I create the job template of this role. I add some credentials. And then lastly, I add the VM to the VM or the container to the Ansible inventory. And then I execute AWX job templates launch. And this is the output that you are seeing over here. This is the job templates launch. Now, similarly, this same output is exactly what you would see in our job. So if we go to this job, you can see exactly this output over here. Now, wait a minute. We said that it has written host vars to a file for us. Now, if we go to see where I am, and we want to go to HashiCube, and if we go vagrant SSH, and we ls-ally /, then we can see here is my fingerprint. So we can do cat this, whoops, we just need to specify /, and we pipe this to JQ. And here is my fingerprint. And we can also see that a user, if we go ID Ansible, a user have been added for us by Ansible, by our job template, our playbook. Now, this all happens inside of a Docker container. It is incredible to be able to practice and get hands-on experience with all of these tools on your local system. You can practice here, you can try some integrations, you can see how Vault works, you can see how Nomad works, you can learn about Kubernetes and Minikube, and you can also, if you clone HashiCube, make your own provisioners, meaning that I don't have Argo CD, but if you want and your team wants to learn Argo CD, you can clone my repository, put Argo CD in there, and maybe make a pull request upstream. This is incredibly powerful. Now, friends, let's say during all of your practice, you have absolutely destroyed this thing. It no longer works. Well, you can just do vagrant destroy. And this will give you back all of your resources. We can say we want to destroy it. It's going to stop the container for us. It's then going to proceed to delete the container, and it's going to give us back our resources. And after that, everything is gone, like we have never used HashiCube before. And friends, if we want to bring this back up and running, you know we can do vagrant up -- provision with base tools, and let's just go Vault. So we bring up HashiCube again, starting fresh with a new configuration. It is going to install some base tools for us, such as JQ, wget, Python, all of these things. And it's going to then proceed to install Vault for us. Now, you can look here on the left-hand menu at HashiCube.com, and you can scroll down to Vault if you want to see what we are going to be doing. Now, here is some latest news. Here is an introduction video by Armin Dadgar, the CTO of HashiCorp. You can copy this provisioner. You will see if you paste this in exactly the output that you will be getting, and you can then proceed to access the Vault web interface. Now, you can then create some policies. Here, I've told you a little bit about the policies, and I've given you an example, and you can then play around with Vault and see how this can help you solve this secrets dilemma. Now, if we scroll down a little bit more, you can read up about Vault namespaces. I've left you some links over here. And when you are done, you can navigate to the databases. Now, using Oracle MySQL, you can let Vault create your database users for you and manage their lifecycle, meaning that Vault can expire this user, create a new password for you, and let Vault handle this. So no longer do you have to create users in MySQL. You create a Vault user, you give it access to create users and databases and grants, and you let Vault handle this lifecycle for you. Now, if we go back to our base tools, we should be nearly done with this. And I will then show you how to access Vault. And then we will be done with this little introduction / demo, how to use a DevOps lab and get hands-on experience on your own laptop using HashiCube. Now, it's proceeding to install Vault for us. It will always download and install the latest version for us. So it will see that Vault is not installed. It's going to install it for us. It's going to set a little bit of a config file over here, specifying storage, the listeners, all of this stuff for us. And it's going to start it for us. Now it is going to initialize Vault and subsequently unseal it, meaning that you can log into Vault and you can start interacting with Vault, creating secrets, creating policies, creating all of these things. Now, here is our root token for Vault, and we can access Vault on localhost 8200. And if we do that, let's pop it in here. 8200. So here is Vault, and you can then log in with your initial root token. Copy that and we paste it in here, and we can log in. Now folks, here is your own personal Vault that you can just go to secret engines, and we only have one secret engine, but let's enable another one. We want KV. Next, we are going to say it's the past KV, key values, or we can just go passwords over there, enable the engine, and we can then create a secret, and we can say, let's call it db_password, and that is super secret password. And we are just going to view it, and we are going to save it. Whoops, we're going to go db password, save. And here is our secret. And this will enable you to play around with Vault. Now, there's many more secret engines that you can try out. There's the SSH, the Transit, LDAP, Kubernetes, Consul, all of these secret engines you can enable and play with that. So folks, in a nutshell, that was quick and easy. I hope you now have a clear shot to the finish line. If you need any help, reach me on my GitHub or create an issue for it, or connect with me on LinkedIn. If you find HashiCube useful or you like these videos, please like it, give me a star on GitHub, or subscribe to HashiCube's channel. I'll be posting a lot more videos. And with that, I wish you a fantastic day. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to seeing you next time. Goodbye.